We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
Anarchy, thank you for joining me. I'm Michael Storm, and thank you for just listening in and taking the time. It's always my pleasure to be here each week, every Saturday, prime time worldwide on the Republic Broadcasting Network to chat about what we do, talk about the things that we think are important to us. we think a lot of things are important to us, and they mean so little to the people outside of us and the rest of the world at times. You can find me on Facebook and X and Instagram, wherever you find me. It's at Toward Anarchy, and you'll know it's me. I don't know why anybody would pretend to be me. Wherever you find me, take a moment to click that like button. It only takes a second, and it makes such a big difference in the way things work around here. That like button means a lot to me personally, and I thank you for it. TowardAnarchy.com to follow along as always. And I have no idea where we'll go today. I really don't. I'm here. I've gone through my yearly funk at this point and dealing with the commentators and the people who want to be on the show, all the various guests and the things that I have to jump through, the hoops that I have to. You would think it wouldn't be that hard, and yet here we are. I ask for an hour of time from somebody a week, and it just is not. It's just not that easy to get an hour of time out of somebody. Yet we do it. We just strive every week. Make the calls, make the emails, send the texts, do it all, and try to arrange the schedule and make it happen. And sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. And so I'm past all that. I've spent the past couple of weeks booking guests into early November. We're at the end of September now, and so basically, let's see. Yeah, all 4 weeks. Or the next 4 weeks all full up and more. There's more, and I actually have, all of a sudden, it's amazing how it happens, an abundance. It just goes that way sometimes. So much to talk about, and I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've been working at it for a while, dealing with everything that's going on in life and just all the various things that have to happen to make this happen, plus working on trying to do the new 2-hour live show every week for the network with Dr. Lloyd, the health show that we're doing, and I'll tell you a little bit about that here in a minute. And doing that, and that's just one more thing on the list is what it is. It's just one more thing out there that needs to be done that requires some time, requires some attention, and it's fine. It's not a complaint to talk about these things at all. I'm never complaining about this stuff because it's not that hard. It's just sometimes you just get bored with it, right? You get a little bored with what you're doing, and because you go through the same routine is what it is. It's not that there isn't necessarily a challenge to be had or that you're done with it. It's just the same routine thing gets to you every once in a while, and apparently for me it catches up about August or so, and so I slack off a little bit. I enjoy my summer. That's a lot of it. Except we shifted this year. We're not. We've done a little bit this summer, but we're actually going to be doing everything into October and November. We bought concert tickets for a number of shows in Kansas City that are coming up over the fall and this winter and into early next year, and just already planning for the things ahead. Time ahead in the months ahead, and it's all just filling up all the time. It just fills right back up. There's never an empty space on the calendar. And having come through the other side of just, I don't know, general malaise, I guess, just kind of boredom with it all. And out the other side of it, you come out of it with a little bit of perspective, but then you come back into it with what's going on here. And I've talked about this before, how to get a break away, it doesn't really do you any good to just go about life doing what you do with concerns and everything hanging over your head that you take a vacation from to get away from and then come back to because they never go away. And I'm not talking about the general things that we do. I'm not talking about the things that we ourselves cause, those types of problems. I'm talking about all the external stuff, all the things that we can't control. The government and society and economics and history and all these things that are going on around us with all these other people around us that we can't control. And to keep that in perspective in our mind, in our place, and keep our spirits up and keep our souls alive in what is as dark a time as any of us have experienced, I imagine, at this point, any of us living have experienced at this point. There could be worse, but I mean generally, overall, for everyone, not just, I'm not talking about, of course it can be worse for individuals, but I mean just a total sense of everyone being sort of down and not feeling real great about the economy or where democracy and the republic are headed, and these are the types of things that you can take a vacation from, but when you come back to them, they don't go away. It's the same thing of trying to drown your problems with alcohol or drugs, something like that, because you get away, they disappear, whatever. You enjoy yourself for that period of time, but then you come back to it, and it's still there. Nothing is resolved, and that's part of the finding some way to exercise these particular demons, I guess. And that's part of my fun. That's why I do what I do. It's why I come here and hang out with you for a couple hours every week and chat about these things, because it helps me put it all into perspective, and it's a seriously needed perspective, something that it takes an effort to make happen. It just doesn't happen by itself. And there's so many people that have no outlet for getting these things out of themselves. Some people go to church, and some people have sports, and some people are lucky and they actually have somebody they can talk to about some of these things and speak with. But generally speaking, most people aren't dealing with it. It's just always there, and it's always hanging over their heads, and it's a constant sense of dread, and it's a constant sense of concern. What am I going to do about it? What's it going to do next? Oh man, what do I have to wake up to see on the news the next day? Well, we talk about it. That's what we do, right? That's it. That's the best that we can do. That's the best that I can do. That's what I do. That's me. That's who I am. I talk about these things, and I'm happy to do so. And the best way for you to acknowledge that, click that like button, follow along at towardanarchy.com, and support Republic Broadcasting Network, republicbroadcasting.org. Click the donate button, or you can call direct. If you need to, there's that little button right there. If you're watching the video, you can see it. You click that little button, a couple more clicks, you make a one-time donation, a regular donation, any amount, your amount. You make the decisions. You kept this network on the air for a long, long time, and thank you for that. And we appreciate it every day, even with all the major changes and things that have gone on. You've stuck with us, and you continue to make it happen. You continue to make it so that we have this space that we can come and talk about these things, have this space to be able to come and exercise these demons, kick out some of these bad ideas and get them out of our heads so that we can go on with the rest of our lives. And it's interesting for me, someone like me, to say that because I am so far distanced from it. I can only imagine what it's like for people who spend their time in it, that they never really do get any sort of escape from it. I have a different perspective of it all, so I'm very happy. I say a lot of times that I'll be fine. It's the rest of you that are screwed. It's your system. You guys are, you whatever. Good luck with it because it's not working out real well. But I'm going to be fine. And unless and until and when all that happens, whatever collapse, whatever breakdowns may come or may not come, we'll be here. We'll be chatting about it thanks to you. You can visit shoprbn.com for the win-win. You support the advertisers. If you need to talk to somebody, if you don't like doing that thing where you're clicking the buttons and using the internet to do things, 800-724-2719, extension 3 is the number to call. You can chat with somebody. They can tell you about the various ways that you can help out. You can also make a donation by mail, check, or money order, RBN 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. And that was a very, very long path to get to. It's a really tough time right now. Freedom of speech, you've heard about that. That seems to be a big topic right now, and that's one of the things that we'll talk about. And we'll see how much of a freedom of speech issue we really have in some ways. In other ways, we're not going to be able to figure it out at all. This is one of those things you won't know what you got until it's gone. It's part of the problem with the collective. There's nothing that we can do as individuals to change what's happening in the overall sense of things, everything that's going on, the larger picture, the greater, just so much, man. That's what happens as you start to open yourself up to it and it starts to flood in. You have to be real careful about letting it flood in on you and overwhelming you, because it is. It's a lot to take in, and that's why you need that break if you're not taking it. It's all about your health, right? You know that's what I'm doing now, is I have a 2-hour show. I'm the host of Your Health and Mine. It's 2 hours. It's now Wednesdays. It's now 2 hours. We've been doing this test run. It's myself and Dr. Lloyd. I just, hang out and sort of introduce people and chat with Dr. Lloyd in between callers, and Dr. Lloyd does all the real work, and Julie as well, working the phones and answering the phones there at the network. They do the real work. I just hang out and make jokes and quips, but it's really fun. It's really great. We talk to people all over the world. We've been chatting with people all over the world about their health, and it's an extension of something that Dr. Lloyd and I have been doing on this show basically once a month for a number of years now, but we're taken to a whole new level. It's live. We're taking calls. People are calling in and asking questions about the healthcare, about the industry, about their own, questions about medications or supplements or creams or whatever it is. We're covering it all. And if Dr. Lloyd doesn't know the answer, he'll find out the answer, and he'll bring that information in with the next time that he comes in. It's Your Health and Mine. It's Wednesdays right here on Republic Broadcasting Network. It's live at 1 p.m. I'm sorry, at noon. I have to adjust for myself. Because initially it was at a different time and on a different day. It's Wednesdays at noon Central Standard Time from noon to 2, and we are live, and you can join us anytime during that conversation, and we love it. It's great. It really, truly is one of the best things that we've been able to do in just participating around here and having a voice and having that conversation and all these things that I talk about on a regular basis, because it's unfortunate that we are where we are at this point. There's a disconnect between who we claim to be as a people and as a society, and who we actually are. And that's one of those things that creates a schism, that creates a problem for people that they can't adjust and can't solve in their mind. And it's not so overt. When I'm talking about these things, it's not so overt. It doesn't seem like it. It's one of these things that manifests slowly, and it just boils and it boils. And that's why you have problems with rage in times like this, where you see people getting upset with each other more often. And there's a couple of components to that. One, everybody has a camera now, and so you're seeing it more often. Not that it's necessarily happening more often or in places that it wouldn't otherwise happen. You just get to see it every time it happens now because there's a camera. But there's also an escalation in it, a general escalation in it, and why not? There are 7 million men out of work, of age men, people, guys that should be doing something, should be occupying their minds, should be occupying their hands, building, creating, in some cases destroying. Somebody's got to knock those buildings down when it's time to build a new one. Whatever it is, they need to be out there, and they need to be doing something other than sitting at home wondering what the hell they're going to do next, getting into failed relationships and playing video games. Not that there's anything wrong necessarily, nobody wants failed relationships, but the video games, the sitting around enjoying yourself, just spending time not doing anything. These are all fine things, but there's there's maybe a little too much of it, too many people, and you have people with too much time on their hand is what you get, and it contributes to what you have now, what's going on out there in a real sense of people not being happy and expressing it out there against other people in weird and different situations that you would hope that it wouldn't come up that often, that you'd have to deal with these things, but that's it. It seems to grow, right? It seems to get a little bit worse. Let's see, did all sort of the basics here. So what I wanted to do was, because I've talked to you, we've had so much going on over the last few weeks, and I've talked to you about it, and, let's see, that's right, I forgot that I had done this. I finally got tired of seeing the Messenger thing. It's the Facebook Messenger one. I get tired of it seeing it showing me this thing about, your chats aren't backed up, and I actually had it get me. It's something they changed. It was never a problem before. Never once had a single problem going from one computer to another and seeing the same chats. And then they changed something. They did some update, and it started popping up there, and it started saying this thing about your chats aren't backed up. You're in danger of losing your conversations. And I finally got tired of it, and so I finally broke down and clicked the button and followed through, and so now there's this secret PIN code thing that I can use to restore my chat history, and I don't know, I won't go into it, but there's a thing about the fact that you can enter a number and lock your chat that they can force you to enter the number. And let's see, verifying. After you restore your chat history, messages will continue to sync automatically even if you log out and log back in. It was always that way before. You didn't need to do anything at all. So let's see, did I send 7 hours ago? Well, there you go. So it seems to have functioned. Yeah, I finally did that last night. Because what was happening is that the window's only just so big as it is anyway for the little chat, and I'm trying to send myself these texts, and I have a history of sending myself these texts, these links, and stories that I share with myself and I share with you. And there's a huge collection of them. I've been doing it for years and years, and who knows where they've gone at this point. Who knows how far I could even go back into the chat at this point since they changed it. And there was never anything wrong with it, but there's only just so much space, and it just kept having this stupid message up in here that was half of the screen, and it said, your chats aren't backed up, and I got tired of clicking the X, and it just would always come back every time you opened a new chat room. There it is again, or a new chat with your wife or whatever, and there it be again right at the top. You haven't backed up your chats. I don't know why you had to change things in the first place. It was working perfectly fine, had worked perfectly fine for years. There was nothing wrong with it. And if there was a security problem or an encryption problem, that shouldn't have changed the method that you stored things on that necessarily. And if it was, then it was always a security problem. It was always your fault, and you should have done it right in the first place. And some of us just don't appreciate having those things dropped on us, because it completely changed. All of a sudden, if you were to close your browser window and delete your browser history, if you have a default like that, it would delete the whole thing. Your chats would be gone and everything, and that's ridiculous. It shouldn't have anything to do with any sort of temporary settings within your own computer, these chats that are stored on there. Hell, they're trying to keep us from having anything stored on our computers. They don't want to do that. That'd be going backwards. But what I want to do is, now that I have the chat window open, I just want to talk about all these different things. I have all these links that I've collected over the last few weeks, and I've shared absolutely none of them. And there's just so many different things that we can be talking about. And as you can see, some of them are as new as 7 hours ago. And I haven't gone to look. I guess we could do that real quick. Just see. Let's see if there's anything interesting. Lopez, if he ever gets his job back, I have just the hat for Jimmy Kimmel, thanks to Trump. Don't know what that means. Don't care. Don't even know who Lopez is. Teen charged in shooting of San Francisco's 49ers. Pearsall, I take it that's a football player. Will not be tried as an adult. Don't care. Starbucks faces lawsuit over dress code. Workers say it's illegal. Definitely don't care. If this is you gotta love the news. Travel chaos as cyber attack disrupts European airports, including London's Heathrow. Now that's interesting. 4 hours ago, Business Insider. Just real quick, we'll see what it's about. It's even a 1-minute read. European airports are warning of delays and cancellations following a cyber attack. Brussels Airport said an attack had targeted a service provider for check-in and boarding systems. London's Heathrow Airport, never been there. Been to Gatwick Airport and Berlin Brandenburg Airport have also reported issues. Several major European airports are warning of delays. Brussels Airport said in an update in its website that an attack on Friday night had targeted service providers check-in and boarding systems, and that it was affecting several European airports. And, interesting. We'll see what that's all about. I assume they'll figure it out eventually, and the planes will be flying as normal. Welfare debt trap is eating the economies of Europe. Welfare eats up economies. It's a terrible, terrible thing, and all the people that are upset about migration and immigrants and people that they don't think belong in their neighborhood, apparently. NIMBY, not in my backyard, don't want them around. A lot of times the problem that people ultimately have with these people is not that they're here, it's that they have access to welfare, and that they get things from the system that the rest of us don't get. That's part of the problem of socialism, right? When supposedly this whole socialist communist nonsense is supposed to fix that problem, where we don't have to be jealous of what other people have, and other people don't get more, and other people don't get less. Clearly it doesn't work out that way. Bill Maher babbling on about some biblical nonsense. Anti-biblical nonsense, I guess. 95-year-old charged with murder after Holocaust survivor roommate. I heard about that. Old lady killed her roommate. Opinion: when students choose silence and violence, the collapse of free speech on campus. Yeah, it's a conversation. But you see what happens when you're given free speech on campus. Some psychopath shoots you in the throat. Outnumbered panelist warns Kimmel axing could set precedent for Democrats to go after Fox News. That part I don't like. Well, no kidding. I guess we can start, can't we? Because some of this, I mentioned the free speech thing earlier. It's a conversation. It's something that are on people's minds. I don't buy that all of a sudden the one party that just yesterday, these political people that just yesterday were using, were abusing the free speech rights supposedly, and definitely in certain ways they were. Manipulating the social media platforms as they did. We're talking about 11 years ago or whatever, somewhere in there, and all this time. It's been over a decade that all of this started, and they were manipulating and controlling what could and couldn't be said across the social media, and that was being directed through the White House and through the FBI and through all these backwoods channels to make it so that it wasn't so direct, but it was obvious what was happening. Of course, we had the X dump, the Twitter dump, when Elon bought the company, and it exposed how they were manipulating things in the background. And of course they were, and we understand this, and that is definitely a concern for free speech. But generally speaking, there's, the social media platforms are private space. They're not your space. You don't get to make the rules, and your speech is limited there. That's the way it works. I shouldn't have to remind people, but we do. We have to remind people that freedom of speech, the First Amendment, these are protections from the state. These are the sentences, the words, the letters put together that supposedly prevent the state, the government, from coming in and saying that you can't say certain things, that you can't talk about certain subjects, that you can't talk about the government. It's about government. It's about government control over people's speech and their natural rights to assemble, to get together, and to talk about the things that they want to do, and hang out together, and to be upset about what's not going on, and to demand change. These are all natural rights that we have in and around, and this is. And so there are a lot of things that we're told that people can do, or that the government can do, that they have no right to do, that there's no morality, that what they do is something that we couldn't do as individuals, so they don't have a right to do it as a collective. But the freedom of speech thing, that's as a collective, as an individual, as whatever, we have the right to do all of these things naturally, and they tried to recognize that right in the First Amendment, and to provide some protection for it. But people confuse free speech in a lot of ways. One, there's the hate speech thing. They're always talking about hate speech. Well, hate speech, that's subjective to what people hate, what people don't like, or what they think other people are saying they don't like and they're offended by. That's, it's a subjective valuation of a thing. It's not real. It's different from one person to another, and so it's tough to push those ideas on people. If it's hate speech, well, it's just speech though, and just because you hate it doesn't mean somebody else does. It doesn't make it wrong. That's not the point of it. The point of it is to say that these arbiters of the law, of so-called justice, the controllers, don't get to determine what speech we have, what speech we can engage in, that they have to stay away from that. And that's it. That's all. It's not, they're not supposed to keep us from being able to get together and voice our opinions about the problems with government. That's what free speech is for. Free speech, freedom of speech, these things do not protect you on the outside. It's ridiculous that we have to talk about this. There's no such thing as freedom of speech anywhere outside of government. In the public, you can speak whatever you want. Of course, you can speak your mind, but there's no protection from the consequences of it, nor should there be, because that would be the government determining what speech is okay and what speech is not okay. People, individuals, subjective valuation of what is and what isn't okay, and that's not to suggest that people should be concerned about overtly concerned about what it is they're saying every time they turn around, whether they have to worry about someone being harmed, about being harmed by someone over something that they've said. And you generally don't have that problem simply because there is no arbiter of what speech you can and can't have when we have the protections that we have. And that flies out the window at a certain point. It just all that logic, all that morality that exists within the idea that everyone gets to say what they want to say, and everybody can be happy with it or upset about it as they choose, and that's okay. And sometimes some people are going to be upset about the things that people say, and somebody's going to take a shot in the mouth for it. And you know what? That's okay too. It's not the greatest thing, and who knows? It's all situational. It's all subjective, as I said. And I'm not placing a value judgment on it. And do you understand that my not doing that is exactly what the government is not supposed to do too? They're not supposed to place a value judgment on the arguments between other people. Now, if those people take their argument to the government specifically and ask the government to be an arbiter in that situation, that's entirely different. That's a whole other place and space within the judicial system, and where questions of violations of right could come in, because it is possible for a real person, just another person, theoretically anyway, to violate your rights, because they are things, they are expressions, they're in most cases, they are external expressions or protections, literal protections of property and person. And so, of course, those things can potentially be violated by anyone. It's the degree to which they can do it and the legality to which they can do it. These are the things that become important. It's the micro conversation of the macro, the bigger conversation about what it is government is tasked with doing in regard to who we are as people, as individuals, and society, and what constitutes living in a free society. And it's all of the gray areas, which is most of life. And so they're not supposed to make any determination about those things, because it becomes something to benefit them. You get what you have here, where they say that some things can and can't be said, some things can and can't be done, and they use those things as an excuse to rob, cage, or murder people. And that's how these protections are supposed to keep that from happening. And it's done a little bit of good, I suppose. It's done fairly well for itself, but it seems to be less and less important, and people seem to support the idea of free speech less and less. I think, generally speaking, the ideas of freedom and democracy and individualism and capitalism continue to fade, because and it's not because that these things aren't good, that they're naturally fading out of existence because that's what happens. Bad things get weeded out. We turn away from them. They don't make us feel good, so we turn away from them. We take our energy away from them, and they go away. You can't do that when it's government that is pushing those things on us and controlling those things. We have such a long road ahead in terms of getting back any of that original sense of what our rights are and the protections from the system, because the system is too big and the system wants too much control, and there are too many people who are cowards and weak, who won't stick up for them, who won't stick up for themselves, and who make it harder for the rest of us. These weak people make it harder for the rest of us to be able to just simply get along out there, because they're always, these weak people, these cowards, they're always using some force or some threat, usually through government, to make other people, make them feel safe, to make them feel better about themselves and the world that they live in, instead of them being generally responsible for their own well-being and their own mental health and their own happiness and their own physical health. We're so far gone from that basic sense of what we can do as can and can't do, can and should be able to do as individuals in this so-called free society that we exist in. It's really quite sad to have to be here trying to explain the very simple, basic notion that the system doesn't control us, that it's not in charge, that they said it once. I know some of you don't like it, and some of you don't think that it works, but it's the sense of it, the notion of it, these general senses that we are the people, us, all of us as individuals, and that everything that comes that is out there comes after us. We have to be here first, the people, and we have to be who and what we are to make the things that we do. And so they said it, right? We the people. And it doesn't have to be anything more than that. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. There doesn't have to be any philosophy other than you don't have a right. There's nothing in morality or in the law that gives the individual, any other individual, any sort of right over another person, an otherwise blameless person who hasn't harmed anyone, who hasn't damaged anyone. This person is blameless, regardless of made up claims by third parties, so that they can collect a paycheck. They're blameless. No one is harmed. No property is damaged. So there's no crime. So there's no need for justice. So there's no need for interference from the state. There's no need for the enforcers of the state to be involved. There's no question of justice because nobody has been harmed. No property has been damaged. Where is the injustice? What is the violation of someone? And it seems ridiculous to have to be sitting here in this supposedly enlightened era where we have all the information in the world at our fingertips. We have everything that we do and know everything that we know and understand, and what little bit that may be in the larger scheme of things. We know so much more and understand so much more than we ever have about the past, and how important it is for individuals and people to be who they are and to seek happiness and joy within themselves, and to be able to achieve it with as little interference from people on the outside as possible, and that's what makes for a better society. There's every single bit of evidence in history, in sociology, in psychology, in the math, in all of it, even in the politics itself, in philosophy, all the way across, even in the economy and the numbers. That's what I say in the math. It's all there. It all says that the individual pursuit of happiness is the most important thing, because if we're happy as individuals, that projects out in every single thing that we do and everyone around us. It's when we're upset, it's when we're angry, we're afraid, we're disconnected, we feel like we're not a part of what is going on and that we have no control. This is when we feel hopeless and helpless, and this is when people are angry, and this is when people hurt each other and harm each other, and this, and if you look at how this pattern happens, you see a pattern of control that causes these things, because as the control shifts back and forth between different peoples with different opinions and different subjective views about how things should be, as they are in control of the jurisdiction, they have jurisdiction, they have legal jurisdiction and political jurisdiction over the things that they control. They alter that system. They alter it a little bit. They pass a law, or they make it okay. They pass everybody votes and says we can do this, or one person stands up and says I have the power to do this, and then he does it, and he sets a precedent, and it moves forward. And I don't know how many times we have to have this conversation, apparently forever. It must never be in it, because nobody ever pays attention, because it continues to happen. You know that phrase they say that it can't happen here? I got news for you. This is happening. This is what it is. The it that can't happen here, this is what it is. This is secret renditions. This is the silencing of dissent. This is the vans that pull up on the side of the unmarked vans that pull up on the side of the road, and armed men jump out in masks, and they snatch people up, and they disappear for weeks at a time, and nobody knows where they are, and they're not given due process. They're not allowed the legal rights that they have, that supposedly all of us value. So important. It's so important. It's what made America great, and America is so great, and everything's so wonderful about it. Due process protected us, but due process doesn't extend to other people. What do you mean other people? I don't recall seeing any caveats in the documents, in the Bill of Rights. I don't recall it once seeing black people, white people, rich people, poor people, citizen people. I don't know. Take any other description and put it in front of the word people or behind the word people, people of, whatever. It doesn't matter. None of those things exist. Just people. And if you want to get specific in terms of sort of legal language and what that could mean, if you went to question, well, what are people? Well, people are just this mass of they're people. They're out there. Well, persons are individuals in all their capacity, in their political capacity, in their social capacity, as a father, as a business owner, as everything. That's the totality of a person, and that's what the word person means. We've discussed this before. I know some of you hate the word person, and you think that it means something to do with sovereigns. It's not. It's the entirety of our sovereign identity as individuals, everything within our person, not just our physical being as a people of the planet. It's everything else within us, everything that we've created, everything that we've absorbed and learned, and the things that we call ourselves and the things that we value in ourselves. That's what is the person, so that it's not leaving out people who have different types of personalities. That's literally what we're talking about here when we're talking about this language and who these things are for. It's all people. All people have the right to speak out against the government, against any person, against anything, anywhere, anytime. And the consequences are such that they are, but we should not, we have a special document that says that the state, that the powers that be can't dish out special consequences for language that they don't like. That's all it says. That's the First Amendment. It's not that hard. I shouldn't have to talk about it for 15, 20 minutes at a time to explain it to people at this point. We shouldn't have to be at this point where we have to suggest to people that it's okay to speak. That it's okay to speak, and that it's okay that we have the right to defend ourselves, and that it's against anybody, and that we can speak against or for anything that we want, that we can defend ourselves against anything we perceive to be a threat to us. Not imagine, perceive. It's actually happening. We just became aware of it. That's what perceived means. It doesn't mean imagined. Take that out of your vocabulary. I know people use that interchangeably, and it's not. They're not interchangeable words. Imagined and perceived are not the same word. And so it's important. It's important. These words are important. I haven't gone off on the thing about words in a while. All right, let's see. Where were we? Outnumbered panelist warns Kimmel. So let's do a couple more things on the Kimmel. Let's click. There's a couple more stories right here just to look at, just to see that we're caught up. Officer of the Year, local hero. These are the victims of a deadly police ambush. And so these are the guys. Look at those stupid hats. They look so stupid. Oh, my God. And they, ugh. Anyway, yeah, these guys were killed. I don't care. Okay, let me address this. This did come up this week because there's a bunch of stories about cops being killed this week, or dying of a heart attack, and or killing somebody in a prison. It's cops, either killing or being killed, because that's what they do. They live by the sword, so they die by the sword. And not only do they live by the sword, but they live by a sort of weaponized sword that's purposely used to go out there and attack people and look for people to rob, cage, or murder so that these guys can collect a paycheck. That's the real problem with that. How is it just not so obvious, these problems, these core problems with the state and the power and these actors for the state and what they're given? Look, these guys are dead, and I don't care. I don't care if authoritarian scumbags get killed. I care when people are harmed, when people die, when people are sad. These are not people. They're not people. These guys in these uniforms, they're not people. They prove that to themselves. There's no greater tragedy than when a cop retires. I'm sorry. There's no greater tragedy than when a cop makes it to retirement. And that's not a statement, and people are, oh my God, you just say that. You want them dead. You don't want them to... That's not what that is. It's not a statement about wanting them to not live out their lives. It's a statement about them not wanting to live out their careers. I want cops to quit their jobs and to stop robbing and caging and murdering their neighbors so that they can collect a paycheck based on enforcing questionably moral, ethically wrong, in some cases racially driven justice that these clowns have, and I just don't feel for them, and we're not supposed to. That's part of the problem. They want you to feel sorry for these cops. These cops don't give a good goddamn about you at all. Not one of them. They don't even know you. They wouldn't care if you died or lived. They don't care anything about you. And you shouldn't care anything about them, because they are nothing to you. They are nobody. They are just a little gang over there, and you're lucky that they're over there and not over here in your backyard. In this particular case, what is it, Pennsylvania or whatever, where this happened? These guys were ambushed. They went to serve a warrant in a domestic dispute, I believe, and the guy smoked 3 of them and shot 2 more of them before, I guess, they got him. And who cares what the core story is? If people were empowered and they understood that it was okay to defend themselves from people who try to harm them, if our women, if fathers and mothers, if you were empowering your daughters to not accept the abuses of a man and an abusive society that's only a few decades away from, if that far away from the notion that women are property and that they're owned by their husbands and they're owned by their fathers. We're not that far away from that ideology, but we're still a long way from empowering women or empowering ourselves, empowering us as people in general to defend ourselves from people who are trying to harm us and trying to we're told that somebody else is supposed to provide for our defense, but those somebody else's aren't there, and they can't be there for 9 to 13 minutes after something has happened, after you've called them and requested that they be there. That's not empowering in any sense of the word. And the only way that you have a polite society is when you have empowered individuals, empowered people prepared to defend themselves, so that criminals understand that there are real consequences or real potential consequences for their actions. If they actually truly believe that there's a chance that they will lose their life for stealing some little thing from somebody, then they're less likely to steal it. And you may think that that's a harsh idea, but it's not the possibility of it that's harsh. It's the act. And who's wrong in the act of violence when other violence has been enacted on you? It's not the response. The response can be more than it needs to be, but it's still a legitimate response for being violated. Yes, it's not reasonable to kill somebody for stealing something of yours, generally speaking, but what about it? What of it? What if they steal the one thing that makes it so you're able to live? I don't know, if it's your oxygen tank or something, your CPAP machine. I mean, that's a direct threat to your life. To get that back may have to take somebody else's life. There was this story the other day. I didn't know this story. If you know Metallica, you know Megadeth, you know Dave Mustaine. Dave Mustaine was a member of Metallica before Metallica broke out, or just as they were starting to break in their first album. And he's responsible for a lot of their music and riffs in that early iteration of Metallica before Cliff Burton died. And Dave was kicked out of the band, and there's always stories and rumors and things about it. And I just heard him mentioning the other day that what the final straw that had him removed from the band was that James Hetfield kicked Dave's dog. He kicked his dog, harmed his dog, and I guess Ron McGovney, Dave was gonna punch him, and Ron McGovney said, if you punch him, you better be prepared to punch me, and then James said the same thing. If you punch McGovney, you better be prepared to punch me, and I guess Dave said, all right, well, let's do this, and started throwing some fists. And of course, Dave's he's been in karate or something all of his life, and so he probably can do, he said something about hip checking and tossing McGovney across the room or whatever, after smacking James in the mouth, and that was the end of the thing. But the point was, there's just the story about kicking a dog. Of course you deserve to get punched in the face, and it's probably not reasonable to kill somebody over kicking your dog, but the fact is you kick the dog, you could probably kill the dog. It's a possibility, depending on how hard you kick them. It's a possibility anywhere. That's why I carry a gun. That's why I don't allow myself to be violated on the street by somebody, even if it's just fisticuffs. You can't do that, because it only takes just a little bit of hitting the wrong spot. You hit the ground, hit the concrete, hit the edge of something, whatever. It doesn't take much to kill a person, and so that's why you have the defense there. You have it. I'm not going to fight you. I don't have to fight you, and I shouldn't. I don't have to meet your aggression with an equal level aggression. That's not how aggression works. If you aggress against me, I'm not going to meet your aggression at the level you've aggressed against me. I'm going to step it up to the next level, because I don't want you to aggress against me again. I don't want you to continue to aggress against me. And if it means that I have to kill you to keep you from doing it, I'm perfectly within my right to do that. And you are perfectly wrong for putting me in that position. You kick my dog, you put yourself in the position to potentially get yourself shot in the face, or take a shot in the face. Either one. That's the point, is that there's a line that's crossed there, and and after that line is crossed, it really doesn't matter. Yes, the controlled individual, the smart, I'm a perfect example of it. I've been aggressed against by armed people, not just with badges, but normal, whatever, gangster, just people on the street, some, drug dealers, things. I don't necessarily know who these people are, but they, you hear the stories, especially if the police get involved at some point, and you hear about who they are and what their lifestyle is, and drug dealing gangsters seems about right. It's happened. It has happened, and I have, in the situations where somebody has pulled a gun on me. They didn't know that I already had a gun, and then I had to drop on them. I remember right after I bought my first 9mm, I bought my first 9mm Ruger at a store in Goodland, Kansas, and no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean Goodland. Goodland is where I was hanging out with my buddy Robert Long. He's been on the show before. Years and years ago, he was living there, and I went to visit him. I'm in Oakley and Colby is where I bought the 9mm. And I just turned 21, so I could carry a pistol for the first time. And I bought it. Was it Kmart? I think it was Kmart. Yeah, if that tells you how long ago it was. And let's see. I bought that first 9 there, and I carried that thing around for quite a while. I mean, okay, so the point is that I've been carrying a firearm for a long time, and I went back to Denver. I went back to visit. I hadn't been there for a while. I had only recently left Denver the last year or something, like that, and hadn't been back to see friends and everything. And I'd had a poor relationship with the woman, and she had gone and got her boyfriend, her new boyfriend, and the new boyfriend's friends and uncle, and there's some thugs, and I don't know. I did not know any of the others. I knew the boyfriend, obviously. I knew the woman. But they, apparently the uncle or cousins or something like that of the boyfriend, the new boyfriend, lived across the street from some people I knew. And I didn't know. I was going back to visit people I knew, and I stopped in and I was saying hi. I'm just hanging out there and I'm chatting with these people, and none of them know that I have a pistol. I have a brand new pistol. It's right here. I could bing, just like that, boom, would have been pulled out. And here comes this mouth from across the street, egged on by this stupid bitch and her stupid little man that she's got now, talking about, who's this punk over here? Who's this? I don't even know who this clown is. I've never done anything to any of these people, let alone to deserve just these random people that I don't know just coming out of nowhere and threatening me. And this guy's sitting there. He has a pistol in his hand. He's waving it around, talking his smack. Who's this punk? Who's the one? Who's he? Where is he? What's his? And I'm just sitting there and calm as can be. He has no idea who I am, especially as he comes ranting in there initially before it's pointed out. I had 100% drop. 100% drop. If I had actually been threatened by him, I could have killed him on the spot without him even realizing what had happened. He thought he was the man. He thought he was the big boy coming in, waving his pistol around. That's not the way you do it. That's not the way a calm, cool, collected fool like me does things. He would have been dead on the spot. That's all there is to it. There's another couple of instances of there was one guy going into a house one time. I was trying to pick up some friends and get them away from a bad situation, and this guy's pretending to be asleep on the couch, and I see the pistol right there. So he has no idea that I know that he has this pistol, and so we just do our thing. I grab my people, and they start to say something, and they start to do something. I'm already around the corner with my pistol drawn before this guy even makes his appearance. He has no idea. He would have died. He comes comes running out the door, waving his pistol, chasing the people that I'm there to pick up. He's starting to say something. There's no real problem. That's the thing. You have to be able to judge these things, and that was the point that I was getting at. As somebody who's carried a gun for a long time, I've been in a lot of situations where it would have made sense maybe to defend myself, especially given the reaction of the state in these things where somebody is attacking me and I've defended myself without firing a shot. Maybe I should have put a shot in some of them and there'd be nobody there to lie about what happened in the situation. There'd just be that dead guy there and me here with my story and legal self-defense to back up that story. Look, we got to go into a break. When we come back, we're going to do a list. It's just going to be story after story after story until we caught up, until I run into something that I've already told you. We'll be right back on Toward Anarchy.
To Toward Anarchy.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
All right, here we go. Up into hour number 2, towardanarchy.com to follow along. It's episode 2531 if you're looking for the specific episode. And I'm just going to rapid fire some links out here and some stories and just get totally caught up, feel like I purged the last few weeks and move into the next few weeks with some fantastic conversations with people across, I picked up a few people, picked up a few people on the Podmatch system, so we'll chat with them. I get a conversation with the one-armed madman to have. Dr. Dean Lloyd is due back in. So weeks and weeks. I've already confirmed 4 weeks. So we have 4 weeks of confirmed. So a full month of guests to look forward to coming up. And more, and just more and more. Just keep it going. Keep pushing the buttons. Make things happen. A First Amendment audit. What? No. Seems unlikely. I can just imagine that that's terrible. I won't go look at it. Let's see. Somebody mentioned me in a comment in an audit community. I'm curious because who knows what I would have said. Let's see. Comments got turned off on my post. Is that freedom of speech? It said funny. Okay. That's good. I'm glad I went to look at this because obviously there's going to be something in here and about freedom of speech. Is that freedom of speech you guys always talk about protecting? Well, obviously, whoever posted this Logan Lister person, it doesn't know what freedom of speech is. This is not a freedom of speech platform. I don't get what people don't understand about that. It's no different than if you came into my house and started hollering at me and trying to tell me something and tell me that you have free speech to do that. The hell you do. It's my house. I don't like what you're saying. You shut the hell up or get the hell out or both. Or we're going to have a problem. The free speech doesn't exist in my house. What the hell are you talking about? Let's see. Yep, the same one your gangsters pretend to defend. Oh, but okay, so this guy is is a former cop or something, and he's somebody who's after these auditors. And so, yeah, so it's these gangsters, these criminal gangsters called cops, they pretend to protect free speech, but obviously they don't even know what freedom of speech is. If he's sitting here talking about this as if this is a freedom of speech space, Blue line gangsters, yes. The Gestapo rules. Seems like they made a big mistake with Korea. God only knows what that babbling nonsense is about. People have this tendency to imagine that other people are in a conversation in their head, and they leave out the important parts of, like, speaking to somebody and telling them what it is that you're saying, because God only knows. Maybe I could suss that out looking through it. Oh, maybe he's talking about a specific person at a specific time and point. No, I shouldn't have to try to guess what it is you're saying. Say what the hell you're saying. Say what you mean, and don't make me try to guess it. Okay, so the reason I'm in here is because we need to go here. This will be some stupid stuff. Yeah. Stupid chat. It happens every once in a while. Somebody tries to add you to a group chat. It's just somebody trying to sell sex or something like that, It's a thing. It's a thing that happens on the social media. They try to get to you. All right, so here's the links. All right. Here, let's real quick. All right, back to these guys. We were talking about the officers. Yeah, don't care. I explained all that. Get over yourselves, cops. Fake frauds and scams, counterfeits on Walmart.com. And there's counterfeits everywhere on the internet. Know what you're looking for. Know what you're buying. Kawiat M Tour. Buyer beware. It's okay to admit you don't know how to start a fire in a fire pit. All right, well, yeah, it is okay to admit that you don't know something, anything, whatever it might be. The trick is to end the ignorance, is to use the fact that the acknowledgement of the lack of knowledge to reinforce that, oh, I need to go learn something. I need to no longer be ignorant about this. I better be able to reach that. I will not be happy. Okay. All right. The way that some of these things lay out on the screen. All right. Let's see. Bosses of Steam, Discord, Twitch, and Reddit have to explain themselves for radicalizing users. This is a free speech thing. Now, I've not read any of these. I mean, maybe there's one or two that I glanced at or whatever along the way, but generally speaking, I haven't read any of these. We're just looking at them because I thought they were important things. Some of them are about technology. Some of them are about the community. Some of them are about rights. It's just a little mixed bag, but they're all, you'll be able to see all the links and everything, certainly on the video, and then I will try to get as many of them in place that I actually visit, get those in place for you to be able to see them from towardanarchy.com on the actual show page. So let's see. Murder of a right-wing activist, Charlie Kirk, last week caused a real political tsunami in the United States. The latest example was the invitation by the chairman of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform of the heads of various online services and platforms to a hearing on the radicalization of internet users. The CEOs of Steam, Discord, Twitch, and Reddit, namely Gabe Newell, Human Sakhinini, Dan Clancy, and Steve Huffman. Well, thank God for Western world names, huh? Poor white boy I am. To appear at the hearing. The commission expects the CEOs to explain what steps they will take to curb the radicalization of their users. That's ridiculous. Let's see, and ensure that these platforms are not used for nefarious purposes. Again, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble. That includes freedom to assemble digitally. Just because you don't like what people are talking about doesn't mean that the government has the right to stop them talking about it, even if they call it radical, even if they demonize it and call it terrorism or whatever. In fact, again, I don't know why I have to keep saying this, and I don't know why we live in the time we live in and have to say something like this, but you can allow people who have different opinions of you to speak and speak, different opinions of anything, different opinions than you. You can allow them to speak. You can give them the courtesy of being the human being and their being a human being, and you leaving them the hell alone and letting them have their opinions and their speech, and it'd still be okay. It'd still be a good thing because you see them. They're right over there. You hear them. They're making their noise. They're saying their things right over there in the open where everybody can point at them and laugh at them if that's what's necessary. That's how it really works. That's how it works well. That's a self-regulating system is what that is. It's when you get in there and manipulate it. Third party government tries to say, well, you can't say this, you can't say that, that's not right. You offset the balance. You offset the natural balance. Hearings will take place on October 8th. Discord and Reddit comment. Let's see. Some of these services have already commented on the matter. A Discord representative stated the company cooperates with authorities on such matters and is willing to appear before the committee to discuss its actions. I wouldn't be necessarily. I would make them present a reason. If it was me, I would present a reason. What is it that you mean? I get what you're talking about. I understand that you don't like the language of some people and you don't like the rhetoric of some people, and that they have the ability to use these platforms to communicate with each other, but the platform is not the problem. Their speech being a problem for you is not the problem because it's not within your purview, government. You can't touch it. There's no, just because it happens to be in a digital space, because it's a new era, it's not, okay, so the typewriter didn't exist yet. Only the quill pen existed when they penned this idea of free speech. So free speech doesn't apply to anything that came after the quill pen? Is that what you're saying? They try to make that same argument for firearms, that, they didn't envision automatic weapons. The hell they didn't. They had them. I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, they were rudimentary compared to the fancy composite things and lightweight and better control and ease of use that we have today. But functionally, they put a whole bunch of bullets in a very short amount of time into the space generally where they aim the weapon at. Gatling guns. Those were things. Let's see. Meanwhile, Reddit representative announced that the service has strong moderation rules for content promoting hate and violence. What does that mean? It means that the platform has decided, and they can because it's their platform, that their standards for hate and violence are A, B, C through D, Z, whatever, to A, double B, double C into the next rows. They've decided that that's their level, and if you don't agree to it, you know what it is. You don't have free speech. You don't get to come here and say what you want anytime you want. You don't get to participate. That's it. That's it. That's the end of the rule. And that should be it. The government should not be involved. This is the same thing that these other guys were doing they're just using the different names. They're not mentioning Twitter. They're not mentioning Facebook. They're talking about these other ones, these other places, because they're a little bit different. They're not the same thing, but they are the same thing. They're a place where us people are coming to gather freely as we can under our rights, under our natural rights, under our protected legal rights, to have a conversation, even if the government doesn't like it. Even if you don't like it, if the fat people don't like it, or the skinny people don't like it, or the black people don't like it, or the white people don't like it, or the gay people don't like it, or the straight people don't, I don't care. It doesn't matter if you don't like it. It's none of your business unless you get involved. And if you don't like it, why the hell would you get involved? If you don't like it, if you don't like what's happening over here, if you don't like what people are spending their money on, spend your money on something to counter it. If you don't like what people are saying, use your voice to counter it. It doesn't have to be violence. You don't have to attack people who have never harmed you. You don't have to use the force of government. That's the thing, right? Oh, well, I just voted. I can slough off the idea that I had anything to do with it. That it was my problem because I voted. I didn't pass the laws. I just voted. I elected the people, and the people that make the laws, and they said they're their laws, and those laws are within the scope of the laws that they have, and they should be able to set those. It's really so. It's the very nature of the political system that all governments and exercise and control and wealth redistribution. Right? That's what we talk about all the time. That's what it is, and particularly as the population in that area, in that legal jurisdiction, in that political jurisdiction grows, as it gets bigger and bigger and harder to control. And so there's no virtue or saving grace in the state or empowering state actors, and regardless of any of the claims to their power, regardless of any of the claims that they use to validate how or why they can rob, cage, and murder the rest of us, the people that they presume to rule over, and the shifting of power from one political party to another, one group within the same political system, isn't going to change that political system. It's not going to change the nature of that political system, particularly democracy, because democracy by its very nature suggests that it's the best way that people can collectively manage society. It's the only fair way, right? We all get some kind of voice, but it's only on the surface that that seems reasonable, because everybody theoretically gets to vote and participate in it, but they don't. It's not even close, really. There's so many different things that can make your vote useless. We talk about them, the mathematics of it just alone, the sheer mathematics of it, and how many people have to vote along with you in any given situation for it to actually tip the balance in your favor. There's so many different things that make that impossible aside from that math. There's the redistricting that we always go through, and there's log rolling, where inside the system itself, one of the political leaders will vote for another one because he will vote for his thing to pass his thing, the legislation that he's working on. There's time and participation limitations. They're always trying to come up with ways to eliminate people from the voting rolls or add people to the voting rolls. So it's just a game, but it's still the same general population. It's still the same people. Nothing is going to change about it. And so at best, that your vote is a defense against the political aggression of the other party, and then of course at worst it's an act of violence, because any law, you really truly have to consider this, that any law that's passed by the political people that you empower with your vote is a potential death threat to anyone else. It's a death warrant. It's signed. It's there. It only takes a matter of a few instances or circumstances to turn them into killers instead of judges. From the most mundane, nonviolent victimless acts to the ultimate expression of man's evil against his fellow man, where he actually takes his life, any failure to comply at any point in the process for any reason can get you killed. It doesn't matter what it is. And it's done legally, and there's nobody who'll be responsible for it. That's what I was getting at, is that responsibility. How is it that democracy, that through the magic of democracy, that we can delegate power, I was saying this earlier, and responsibilities that we don't have as individuals to a collective? How can we do that? They don't exist. I don't have that power as an individual. There's no natural right or legal right. There's the ability, but there's no right to it, because nobody has a right to do anything to anyone else or their property if not invited to, right? That's the point. That's what voluntary means. It doesn't make moral or logical, valid sense in any way that someone could have a natural right to make me do something or take something of mine that I don't freely give without consequence, for sure. And yet somehow when you and your neighbor get together under this magical thing called democracy, you take a vote, and all of a sudden a power that you didn't have as an individual now becomes the power of a collective, and now my stuff is up for auction. You're taking my stuff. You're making me see things, behave a certain way, or face punishment for not doing it. All that logic and morality just flies out the window, and along with it goes any personal consequence. You didn't take what was mine. You didn't kill me personally. You just voted. The politicians said something was a law. I broke that law, and in the end, the system does what it does to those who don't go along, those that break its rules, and of course, the system would never do that to someone who didn't deserve it, right? What we've been told as children, to keep our hands off of other people and their stuff, it no longer applies to anything after voting age, apparently. And all of this is done in the name name of protecting the system. It's all tradition. It's paying lip service to the founding of the nation, the sanctity of the system. All hail the great republic and its democratic process, and regardless, just overlook all of the failures, all the murders, all the death, all the theft, all the criminal scumbags in position that have abused their powers, the failure to punish those who failed the collective, these poor and social opinions that have been enacted, they made them actionable. They turned them into law. They've given a legal path for these scumbags in uniforms with their badges and their little clown costumes to violate people. They've given them a path to do that, and that's what I was getting about in the terms of consequences about these things, and about for people being able to distance themselves from the damage that they've done to other people. This idea that we should be controlling speech and that we should be manipulating the platforms for a particular type of speech is scary, and it's never been more important than for you to support free speech platforms like Republic Broadcasting, to support people like myself. Not that there's any particular way to support me. Click the like button. That's it. That's the biggest way you can support me. Just click that like button. Click a share every once in a while. No biggie. Takes just a quick second. No skin off your nose. Maybe you might break a fingernail or something on the map. Maybe you better not do it. Huge changes coming to the U.S. Army as new rules to be introduced. This Daily Express, Ethan Evans. Huge rule changes, new uniform wear instructions. Let's see, they can carry their phones while wearing their PT gear. Well, how stupid. Who cares? A number of alterations have also been made to the Army Green Service uniforms, regular and tropical versions. While higher-ups are expected to be stricter when it comes to soldiers' hair and makeup, this is revealed in a directive that was issued on Monday. Adhering to policies and regulations regarding appearance, including uniform wear and grooming standards, demonstrates a shared commitment to maintaining a professional military appearance, the notice reads. It comes after no shock here. It comes after Donald Trump and Melania's unusual sleeping arrangement in Windsor Castle had been revealed. Okay, that's a little bit silly. New directive also gives commanders and non-commissioned officers the right to enforce on-the-spot corrections for tightened grooming. So it's just more authoritarian stuff. It's more get in line. It's not anymore about humanity. It's about the collective. And that's the problem with military service. It is collective. It is socialist. Let's see, abolish the FCC. I don't care what this one says. It's right. This is from National Review, the editors from National Review. It says abolish the FCC. ABC Late Night host Jimmy Kimmel on what, and this is separate from the free speech issue, as far as I'm concerned, in what is being touted and couched as a free speech issue when it's not, when it's about voluntary people severing voluntary relationships and not liking the language, regardless of what other people may have said here and there along the way. This manipulation, this question of the First Amendment in these things, it's a little bit cloudy. It's a little bit clearer as you move closer to some of the sources of these things. But in reality, when you start looking at the Jimmy Kimmel thing, the first thing you see is that over the last 2 years, his ratings have fallen by half, more than half. And his ratings sucked anyways, because 2.2 million views per episode, sort of 2023 numbers, is nothing. There are video game commentaries that get more views than that. And so it's sad. It's really sad. He's not doing well, hasn't been doing well. Network hasn't been doing well for a long time. And, of course, they're going to use the political climate to score some points, to just sort of bathe in the controversy that's going on. So yeah, you take an opportunity to get out from underneath a sinking ship, to bail off the sinking ship, and blame it on somebody else. You take it, even if there is some truth to the blame in somebody else, you're still using it to your advantage to get out of this other situation that is untenable. And the untenable situation is late night talk TV. Here's the thing. Think about this. And this makes sense over the time period that we're talking to, because over the last couple of years, for sure, more and more people are podcasting, and not just more and more people are podcasting. They're the stars, famous people, musicians, whatever it is, people who are putting on presentations, the same people who were going on Jimmy Kimmel on ABC and NBC and CBS and these different talk shows on these places, and Colbert or whoever, they're going on these shows to talk to the people. Well, they don't need to. They haven't needed to for a while, and they've all realized this. And so late night talk shows in general, nobody needs Jimmy Kimmel anymore because they have their own platform to talk about it. Okay, so Jimmy Kimmel is still useful, all right? Because Jimmy Kimmel's a host. He's like me. He's somebody that can do this. He can go anywhere he wants. He can turn on a microphone and start talking to whoever will come and talk to him. What's not needed anymore is ABC or NBC or CBS. Any of these they're not needed anymore. Nobody needs them anymore. Nobody needs them. Nobody needs YouTube. Nobody needs centralized control over the dissemination of information of any type. Nobody needs networks anymore. Nobody needs anything, because everybody can just pop up their own website, put their own video and everything up there on their own website, or they can throw it up on the YouTube and people will come there and aggregate. YouTube, that's what it's useful for, is the aggregate amount of information and stuff that is available through it. It's otherwise not useful for anything. And so we're in a situation where these people are no longer, these old institutions are no longer useful. They're no longer viable. They're no longer tenable. Whatever word you want to use, the situation has changed. It is no longer a case of the late night talk shows are of interest to people. No, they're not. Look, I have a 78-year-old man living in my house, and he doesn't watch TV. He doesn't watch regular TV. He watches stuff like we do, on demand. All the networks, they useless. No use. Broadcast networks, no use for them anymore. Antiquated things that probably should have gone away a long time ago, really. But they're just hanging on, and they consolidate more, and then you end up with 6 companies that own everything, and that's why you get where we are today. And some of them they try to hang on. This legacy media tries to hang on to its past and fails. All these guys do it. All of them do it. They fail to move forward. They fail to see the future for what it can be and for what it is in a lot of cases as it's happening in real time, and they don't take advantage of it. Let's see, ABC late night host Jimmy Kimmel, was supposed to be a humorous show, said we hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can do to score political points from it. Isn't that funny that that's what he said, when what I'm talking about is them using him to score political points, his former employers to score political points, and to keep the narrative going and to keep getting clicks on him. You got used, dude. You got used good. And you walked right into it. Instead of, look, by the time you got around to saying this, everybody knew. Everybody knew. It was already fake. The people on the left were already creating a narrative to suggest that natural, normal things couldn't have happened in this situation. There's no way that this kid grew up to be a leftist weirdo nutball that would just murder somebody in cold blood because he doesn't like his opinion. There's no way that could have happened because he grew up in conservative Utah under supposedly conservative parents who voted MAGA, who voted Trump, blah, 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 because no, we didn't just go through 3 generations of people like myself looking at their parents and their politics and their religion and all the other stupid crap that we thought they were doing and saying, no, I don't need any of that. That never happened. That didn't happen. That couldn't have possibly happened. It would never, it certainly didn't happen in this situation. There was no way they were going to find out that he's in a group, that he hangs around in social media and these in particular groups that are militant, left-wing, insane people who are plotting in some cases and planning and encouraging murders of CEOs and rich people that have never harmed them directly, people who have never done anything to them, and in a lot of cases never done anything to anyone at all. They're cowards. They're cowards. Listen, I'm not suggesting ever that anybody should take up arms against the government. I think it's stupid. I think you can do better things with your life. I think you can survive easier and in just more peace without ever doing something. It's just not necessary to do. But these cowards shoot somebody like Charlie Kirk instead of taking a pot shot at a leader. I mean, come on. That's some cowardly stuff. That if that's the target, then everybody's a target, because you're all of you guys, not me. I'm not a target, because if your logic is that their hate is going and their speech turns into votes and actions on other people, then that's all of you voters, all of you haters, all of you out there, left, right, anywhere in between, as long as you're still voting, as long as you're still using that system, as long as you're still pretending that there's some morality in forcing other people to do what you want them to do through the vote, and passing off your responsibility as an individual for the things that you say and do to someone else, and those things that you support within the system, and you take away any culpability. But if you're going to shoot at Charlie Kirk, then any voter is a target. You want to start a war? Start a war with the people who don't care about the system, and you're going to lose, because the system the system will only stretch, the elasticity of it and people backing it until it begins to crumble, until it starts to show that it can no longer protect those that it says it can protect. And we're at that point. And so that's why there's a doubling down. That's why the masks come on. That's why the unmarked vehicles start appearing on the streets. And that's why we get to where we are at this point. Let's see. It also wasn't worthy of vague threats of government sanction. No, it wasn't. I agree, it wasn't. And again, to make this real clear on the free speech thing, this question of free speech when it comes to these guys, on the surface, the fact is that Jimmy Kimmel was in a voluntary relationship with his employer. His employers are big players. Some of the biggest, in fact, trying to become bigger, trying to do more mergers. It's exactly what I was just talking about, him being used as a tool, and about them consolidating all the media. Well, it continues, and it continues all of the time, and it continues because they want to control the flow of information instead of finding their space and accepting that their voice is heard and is out there and reaches and has its chance. They have to fight through the system. They acquire other things. They use the FCC and the government, and this is the thing. This is why the FCC can come in here and say, "Oh, we want you. You have to do this, or we're going to, vaguely, do something about you being able to say and do the things that you do because we don't like it." And that's kind of what it was. It was this vague threat by this clown from the FCC that he was going to silence people, basically, that if somebody didn't do anything about it, that he was going to do something about it. The FCC was going to do something about it. Well, one, you don't need a license to broadcast anymore. Individuals haven't needed a license to broadcast since the mid-90s. So even on terrestrial airwaves like FM 101 or whatever's in your neighborhood, whatever it is, anyone can go in there if they'll let you and turn on the microphone and talk. You do not have to be licensed to use the radio waves anymore. You still have to be licensed to have a traditional broadcast station and to run a cable company and things like that. But you don't have to be licensed to put your information out there and make it available for people. You just have to be licensed to go through their system. And so that's the threat, right? They're going to mess with your license, and then they're not going to be able to be up there in the competition with the bigger guys. They're not going to be able to stay up there because the FCC is going to block their mergers, and it's going to start fining them or whatever it's going to do. The FCC definitely needs to be banned. Let's see, FCC experts power. Let's see. Let me try that again. The FCC experts power exerts power. That's why I can't get it, because that's not the word expert. The FCC exerts power over broadcasters by threatening to revoke their licenses. These licenses exist based on a legal fiction that the federal government owns the airwaves. Yeah, this is great. Like I said, this is a fantastic article, no matter what, because the FCC should be banned, and for every reason and any reason. They shouldn't have the power to control communications, period. The FCC should be banned along with almost everything else in government. But that's okay. We'll start there. It's a start. Let's see, next. There's plenty of reason for pessimism about the U.S. economy. And again, I haven't read these, so that's part of the reason why I'd be a little fumbly with the language, and because I try to keep the speed up, keep it moving. This is from the Washington Examiner, Nick Thomas. There's plenty of reasons for pessimism about the U.S. economy. And like I said, there's a bunch of stuff in here about the economy, and let's see what this guy has to say about it. Something may not be quite right. All the noise around the August Bureau of Labor Statistics report was about President Trump's subsequent firing of his former chief. But the report showed significantly lower hiring, and the sectors in which they were hiring, in which we're losing jobs, are extremely important too. Sober judges of the current U.S. economy trajectory say the reported figures combined with other indicators suggest slower growth in the short term and perhaps even worse in the long run. And that's been my conversation. That's been our conversation. And again, I've always put it to you, this idea that yes, it's happening. Yes, it's going to happen. There will be a collapse. There will be a change, and it's the rockiness, the bumpiness of it that is questionable. It's not it's the when is questionable, and the how is questionable. There's no question about the if. It's going to happen. It's just how long can they drag it out? How long can they manipulate? What changes can they make? What legislation can they force upon people to switch them away from one instrument, one collapsed instrument, to another, which will eventually collapse at some point? Let's see. Trump administration's infamous tariffs are undoubtedly playing their part, mainly perhaps because they create such uncertainty. However, they are also beginning to raise prices on consumer goods, and that's what happens. The Trump tariffs were never good. We've covered all this. There should be nothing new in that conversation in that particular article. If you listen to me talk about the economy, nothing new in it at all. Web of Business interests show that Kimmel's future rests on far more than his jokes. This is David Bowder and Bernard Condon from the AP. This was one that was one of the ones that I thought was kind of interesting sounding, just because of the fact that it's going to talk more about what I've just talked about, I assume. And that's that it's much more about business and about them doing what they need to do. They're with this. There was somebody that wouldn't carry Kimmel anymore after the statements, and this was a private thing. And this happens to people that live on ratings and television shows and radio shows and things, when you begin to lose support locally, then that trickles up to the national spotlight that you happen to hold, if you hold one, and once your affiliates start to go away, then they start to question whether or not you are a viable, if you're something that they want to keep investing money in and keep you communicating. And giving you a voice and a space for that voice when it's costing them so much money or whatever. And so it's all about business. It's less about somebody's free speech or about a particular narrative per se than it is about business. And of course, when business and government collide, what do you have? You have fascism, and you have what we have here, where you basically you have the government controlling the business, so the business controls, it uses its policies to control or curtail the otherwise natural rights of the individuals who would otherwise be using their platforms or their products or their services or whatever it is. And that's where you get the confusion of there being some question about what the First Amendment means. That's where that confusion comes in, because there's a line that's been crossed already by the government. It's not a case of this is a crisis, this is a First Amendment crisis. It's that the First Amendment's been in crisis, that the idea of free speech has been in crisis all the time, and it will always be in crisis. That was the thing. That's the idea of taking control of your government, having a small but otherwise manageable government, supposedly, right? Is that when it starts to get a little out of control, you rein it back in. But yeah, obviously there's no, when the system is what matters, as I was saying earlier, that democracy has to survive so that the players can continue to play. That's all that matters. These actors, these state actors, will continue to put on their little show for everybody and make it about them and their supposed right to rule, however they got it. However they got it. It doesn't matter if it was a divine right of kings or it was a divine right of morons with a vote. It doesn't matter. And neither one of them validates it. ABC owner Walt Disney Company, massive organization with far-flung operations, frequently seeks federal regulatory approval to expand, buy, or sell businesses or acquire licenses, and the Trump administration has not spared the company from investigations, opening multiple inquiries in just the past few months to probe possible antitrust programming and hiring violations. That's what you do, right? You set up that structure. Oh, it's antitrust. Well, you've been taking advantage. That's how you curtail the free speech. That's how you shut down the conversation. There's a bunch of different terms for it, and depending on how it's done and who's saying it and how overt the approach is to sort of trying to quell the conversations of other people, of normal people, of us out here. They, using roundabout methods to do it. The government can't come out and say, well, you can't say that. Oh, but the government can, because you stupid voters have allowed them to do it. Control corporations and dictate how corporations and what corporations can be filed and created, and how they can be run and who can run them, and who they can hire and how much money they can make and how many hours they can work, and all these things. You allowed the government to decide these things, so that's its end around to everything else. It's protecting employment, it's protecting government, it's protecting the idea of free speech when it comes in and does these things to people. Well, that's not free speech. That's hate speech. That's ignorant speech. That's blah, blah, blah. Well, though, hate speech and ignorant speech and all speech is free speech. That's because it's all speech, and it's all free, and nobody has a right to tell anybody that they can't say anything unless they make up that right and they make up that power, and they use other people to enforce it. They use cowards and criminals to enforce what they believe that they have the right to force other people to do. Let's see. Kimmel was suspended from his show following the comments about Charlie Kirk. trying to capitalize on his, and the Republicans and conservatives trying to capitalize on his assassination. Not like the left doesn't do such things. The FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, that's the fool that I was talking about, called the remarks truly sick and suggested his agency would look into them. He's truly sick for suggesting that those remarks they were stupid remarks, because by that point, anybody who was paying attention absolutely understood that this guy was not what the left was trying to say he was, and of course they were. They want to drum up a conspiracy. They want to do anything to distract from the fact that it was one of theirs, and that theirs do these things in such a way that is so much different. All the political assassinations and things that were happening, that have happened in the past, so many of them were driven by the state, whereas this thing with Charlie Kirk, this was just some guy shooting another guy, and the guy thought he was going to get away with it, and he thought he was going to get sympathy because of the like the Luigi Mangione thing and shooting the healthcare CEO and all of that happened, and the sympathy that he has garnered. And I've literally seen people in this instance, in what's happened since since Charlie Kirk. So is that his name when you do it all together, Curly, when you say it all together? Charlie Kirk was, since that happened, I've seen people literally use the phrase at the end of a statement of something about free speech or killing somebody, or in relation to these particular types of events, free Mangione, and slight interruption there, just distraction for a quick second, but back to it. I was already talking about Nexstar and their refusal to air Jimmy's show, and then it was, I guess, Sinclair as well was another one. I'm just seeing that here in this article that we're looking at. And let's see, it says Disney took a step last December to avoid confrontation with Trump by paying $15 million to settle the president's defamation suit against ABC News and George Stephanopoulos. Let's see, it also made a move to dismantle some of its diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, including removing references to its annual report to its Reimagine Tomorrow program aimed at amplifying underrepresented voices. Well, what does underrepresented voices mean, and how, what does diversity mean? These are all meaningless words at this point in our history, right? Let's see. I just want to hit on some more of these, so I'm just going to keep a rolling. I get a window back up there. Let's see, where did I leave off? It would have been, not like that. Nice of you to just skip over everything. Just skip it all. Load slower on the 5G connection. The high speed. Let's see. So what is the claim here? I'm saying something is demonstrably false. Doom. I made a note, whatever it was. New study finds strong links between prejudice and support for political violence in the United States. And what did I say? No, that's something else. It's something else in there that I was commenting on and didn't get the link in there. That's too bad. Supreme Court erased the Fourth Amendment by okaying Trump's immigration sweeps. One could definitely argue that. This is an adapted excerpt from September 13 episode of Velshi, whatever that is. Ali Velshi, I guess, is the person that works for MSNBC that wrote this or put on this episode, and this is what they spoke about during the episode. Let's see. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. The right of the people, all people. It's not capitalized. We've been down this road. We've talked about this. We've talked about all of these amendments and their very limited nature, in what they really truly provide for us in terms of protections. Few parts of the Bill of Rights drew drew more directly from the lived experiences of Americans at the time than this one. American colonists lived under British Crown that tried to police their private lives, communications, and gatherings. The Townshend Acts of 1767 authorized writs of assistance, warrantless searches that let the king's men storm homes and shops at will. No reasonable suspicion, no rights, just raw power. The Coercive Acts of 1774 went further, forcing colonists to house British troops in their homes. These are all, you act like these things never happened before, or that they couldn't happen again, and you just, that would be somebody who doesn't realize history. Oh, need your guns to protect it. King George's not going to come in here and invade again. No, but King somebody might. King, Plastic Head might. It's definitely one of those possible things. It's why the Constitution framers drew a hard line. The Third and Fourth Amendments were their answer. Persons, home, and property and persons were off limits to arbitrary power. That's the entirety of the Bill of Rights. That it's clear what its intention is. The only people that argue that it's something different are people that are not. They're in some way or another, they stand to lose directly by people having those rights. Either they plan to violate other people and they don't want people to shoot them, or they want to silence other people so they don't want them to be able to speak out. They want to arrest them and keep them and capture them and take their things, so they don't want them to have due process and to be able to be released. These are the only people that would ignore these very simple, basic understandings of humanity. The things that I have are mine, and nobody, nowhere has any right or business getting involved in my stuff unless I invite them in it, or unless I am guilty of basically violating somebody else and there is some material evidence within my things that would prove or would otherwise compensate the person that has been violated in one way. There's any number of reasons why someone reasonably could have their items, forfeit their items, their things, their privacy to somebody else. But it would have to be voluntary, and by voluntary I mean you go out and you kill somebody and you owe somebody for that life. You volunteered that. That's as voluntary as you didn't have to take this person's life. And I'm not talking about a place. I'm not talking about a place of defense or anything like that. Obviously, that's a different conversation. Let's look at this. Let's see what this thing said. New study finds strong links between prejudice and support for political violence in the United States. I didn't look at this. New study published in the Lancet Regional Health Americas suggests the Lancet is a worldwide publication. It's a medical journal. It is a peer-reviewed medical journal, for whatever that's worth. Suggests that various forms of prejudice are strongly tied to the belief that political violence is justified in the United States. I suppose that that's probably true, but there's a reason for that. That's because the government is that thing that forces us to accept other people that we don't want to accept. The government shouldn't have the right, the ability to make my business serve somebody else that I don't want to serve. Anybody else that I don't want to serve. For whatever reason, it shouldn't matter. They shouldn't have the ability to do that, but they do that, and so that creates a prejudice base on which to justify political violence. If one side of the political party spectrum of this false paradigm that we have, if one side of it upholds for a particular value set or a particular people's or a particular idea, and these people over here are kept down because of it, they don't like it, they don't want to be forced to deal with it, they don't want it in their schools, they don't want it in their homes, whatever it is, whatever the excuse is, the government forces it upon them, that makes them viable political targets to these people that are being oppressed, just by the very nature of suggesting that anybody be a political target that isn't, that anybody is a target other than a target of, sort of direct revenge. Somebody violates you, you target them to violate them back, assuming that you weren't able to do something about the violation, the initial violation, their initial violation of you at the time. Let's see. So the Lancet did this study. People expressed the most intense agreement with these prejudiced views were also more likely to say they supported or would personally engage in violence to achieve political objectives. Of course they would. That's what I just said. When these forms of bias were combined into a broader measure of generalized hostility, the association with violent attitudes became even more pronounced. The research was conducted by a team at the University of California, Davis, UC Davis, as part of a larger project to track support for political violence in the U.S. over time. The researchers aimed to quantify how various types of bias contribute to the person's willingness to justify or commit acts of political violence. They shouldn't look just at the bias, though. They should look at the cause for the bias, because the bias isn't just racism. People can be racist and not like other people, not want to be around other people, and not break the law at the same time if it's not illegal to be racist. If it's not illegal to be racist, if it's okay for you to hate other people for whatever your stupid reasons are, then there's no reason for there to be any conflict. It's okay. Those people over there hate me, and they're over there, I'm over here. I'm not going to cross their paths over there. I'm not going to go out there. And generally speaking, you probably pass any number of really racist people at any point in your day in life, and people who don't like you for whatever reason, the color of your hair, the color of your skin, your presumed proclivity for a sexual preference, or your religious preference, or whatever. There's any number of reasons to hate on people. There's no particular reason why those things would support political violence unless it is that the thing that they don't like is being forced upon them. That's why the bias isn't as important as what's exerting the force on them to accept this, that to have to accept that their bias is not valid. They're being told that their bias is not valid, that they can't have it, that it's not right, and that leads to a political schism. Of course it would. Let's see, they use the term allophobia to describe a generalized fear or hatred of others, an umbrella category that includes racism. That's not good. That's not a good idea. You can't lump other things in with racism. Racism is very specific, and you're talking about an umbrella category. It's just allophobia. It's just a general fear of people. No, that's nonsense, because a general fear of people and not liking someone because of the color of their skin are clearly two different things. I hate it when I do stuff like this and I end up finding such glaring problems with the very basis on which these things are founded, because I would suggest to you that they're trying to argue that ultimately this, right? How many times do we do this? We end up having this particular conversation where I read something like this, and it ultimately, if you could see the image here with me, and you can if you watch on Rumble or YouTube, or on Spotify, as a matter of fact. You can watch these, you can see what I'm looking at, and of course the lead picture, the picture for this article, for this story, is a guy holding a gun behind his back and entering a building. And there's no suggestion there that this has any other, and it's a white guy. It's, if it had been a black guy, it'd have been racist. But because it's a white guy, it can't possibly be racist, even though what we're trying to suggest is that white guys with guns are all racist, and that's why they own guns, that's why they want guns, because they don't want the people of color to take over. Yeah, no. Obviously, this was one of these demonstrably false things that is easily proven by the fact that all of you aren't dead. All of you people who aren't gun people, who think that everybody who owns a gun is some psychopath and that they just go around killing people and that's all they want their gun for, so they can enact their hatred on people of color and people of different sexual persuasions and what have you. No. Otherwise, they'd all be dead. You'd all be dead. It would be over. There would be no question. That's why you don't go around shooting somebody in the neck, murdering him in front of his family to make your point about guns and violence, and to tell somebody that the family is a bad thing and that faith and brotherhood are a bad thing. And what else are we looking at when we're talking about that event, right? Well, there's no other reason. Was he was killing the next Hitler? We don't do that because we don't know what the next Hitler is. That's not how we play the game here. That's literally a game. Oh, if you could go back in time, would you kill Hitler? Who knows what comes after Hitler? What comes next to Hitler? Killing Hitler doesn't change the atmosphere that allowed Hitler to be Hitler. Killing orange people doesn't stop orange people, the people that support orange people, from doing what they do. It doesn't stop. It doesn't change things. It's political violence that it just doesn't. I read that whole diatribe earlier that I had written the other day. You may not have been able to tell that I was reading something to you, but I was, but it was my own words, and that's exactly what it was about. It's about this political violence and violence for the sake of politics, and the idea that you can somehow change it by enacting violence on people or by stopping people from being violent. Neither of these things works. Neither of these things is going to stop the problems that we have in our society. I got to break out of here. That's it. I have to get on out of here. We will see you next week here on Toward Anarchy. Until then, take care.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network.